Hey everyone, starting up Zoon Politikon, the very first live broadcast. And I'm joined here with Piper Report. We've done a couple of live chats before, but this is the first one from my channel, so finally figured it out. So welcome, Piper.
Oh yeah, should be fun.
We're going to have so many people here, I'm sure, joining us any minute now. I'm going to say hello to everyone. Hello. Please join our live broadcast.
Tweeting it as well.
Oh, good. That's a good idea. Oh, we got 2 viewers. Is that us?
Probably.
I got excited there for a second. That's cool.
It did say 7 earlier when I first got on it, but 4 right now. We're moving up in the world.
Ooh. Okay. All right. I know it's kind of random, like a Wednesday night at 8 o'clock, but
I saw that Hard Bastards doing his
I
live
just
right now as well.
too. I was like, he's gonna take all the potential viewers because we have a very similar audience, but that's okay.
Alrighty, well, what should we discuss?
So I have not done any videos or any response at all to the Las Vegas shooting at all. I kind of wanted to give it some time. I know a lot of people have been responding on it, and just first of all, just my impression. I don't know if it's just because of like the friends that I have or just the circle, the bubble that I'm in, but I feel like people are kind of questioning this shooting, not necessarily the like whether or not people died. Like I personally think people did die, but I think there's been a lot of conflicting reports on what happened in Las Vegas and how the mainstream news has been reporting on it. So just from my personal observation, people who normally did not question any sort of mass shooting even a couple months ago are now all of a sudden questioning this shooting. And I don't know if it's just because of the circumstances of the shooting or people are just more conspiratorial in general right now. So what are your thoughts on that before we actually get into any details about what happened?
Well, it's actually funny you brought that up. On Twitter here, I read a meme, and it actually links to an article. I just want to read this quickly here. So here's what it says. If you look at the website flightaware.com and search a tail number N5343M, you will see that the N number belongs to a SR-20 that at one time was registered to Stephen Paddock of Mesquite, Texas, and Henderson, Nevada, our shooter. You will see that it currently registered to a company out of Roanoke, Virginia, named Volant LLC. This company works with defense intelligence community per their website. It gets better. The registration is listed as active, but the last flight for the aircraft was 3 years ago. They only show the flight when a flight plan is filled. FlightAware pulls their data directly from the FFA registration database, so it should be accurate, correct? Now the interesting part. If you go to FAA.gov and put the same tail number into their search engine, N5343M, you will find that the FAA says the N number is inactive, and the last registration was a C152 to some guy in San Diego, California, and no mention of the current registration by Volant LLC or Mr. Paddock. The FAA database is updated every business day at midnight, so it looks like someone either scrubbed the FAA database and forgot or didn't know that the FlightAware posted the same info. We now have a connection between Stephen Paddock and the spook outfit. Interesting.
Roanoke, Virginia. That's interesting connection. I think people were talking about that the shooter worked for some sort of private security or something like that at one point.
I heard that he may have actually been an arms dealer as well. His brother Eric Paddock, I think his name was, he was just talking to the media, and there was another like a short meme video where he almost let it slip that his brother was an arms dealer. Now, that is kind of conjecture. I mean, that's open for, I guess, your subjective viewpoint, whether he was going to say it. It sounded like he was going to say he's an arms, and then he stopped. So whether he was going to say arms dealer or whatever, but I mean, there are some connections, it appears, between him and some type of like the article said, spook outfit. So it is interesting that, I mean, this could be a possible false flag. I mean, it's possible that it's not, but there always is a possibility to something of that effect, something nefarious like that.
This is according to Fox News. I just found this article. This just came out. Las Vegas shooter Stephen Paddock had government jobs and bought 33 weapons last year. They say that he worked for the Internal Revenue Service and was an auditor for a defense contract. He started his government service. He worked for the post office at one point, and then he worked with defense contracts, and he's been described as a multi-millionaire who had major gambling tendencies, let's just say. I don't know if it, I mean, you can't really necessarily call it like gambling problems if he was making millions of dollars, but
yeah. There's one thing with that too is, now whether this was, what it appears to be or whether it's not, one thing I didn't notice though that the media is complicit in is that they always sensationalize these types of events. And that is the one sure way to increase them. Because when people see these people live in infamy, for instance, I mean, there are a lot of nut jobs in this world. And when they see that if they do something nefarious, they do something completely just evil, that they will get a response from the president. They will be on the national news. They will be the main story. I mean, they just, it feels their ego. And that's just not me saying this. I want to just give you a quote here. I did a video on this actually a few days back. That's why I'm bringing this up. But here's what a German psychiatrist said, Dr. Park Dietz, 8 years ago. We've had 20 years of mass murders throughout which I have repeatedly told CNN and our other media, if you don't want to propagate more mass murders, don't start the story with sirens blaring, he said. Don't have photographs of the killer. Don't make this 24/7 coverage. Do everything you can not to make the body count the lead story, not to make the killer some kind of anti-hero. Do localize the story to the affected community and make it as boring as possible in every other market. Because every time we have intense saturation coverage of a mass murder, we expect to see one or two more within a week. And I think that actually perfectly delineates the type of mentality that a lot of these nut jobs and lunatics have. They see someone doing a despicable act and becoming famous for it, and in their minds, it fuels their own ego, and they want to try to become like those, I guess you could say, nut jobs that I mentioned before.
Yeah, I think, and this has gone on since, it used to be before we had like the mass shooters like every few months, before that it was serial killers, and the United States media has a long history of sensationalizing and reporting on every single little detail of these sorts of mass killings or people who are serial killers. That sort of sensationalist journalism, it's just been like part of America's journalistic history for, more than a century now. If you think about how we've gone on about serial killers before that, and now it's mass shooters or, people who commit these sort of mass murders. Meanwhile, people are murdered every day in the United States, and we don't seem to sensationalize it the way that we do when it's a mass killing.
Yeah, I can see that as well. Like for this, I do understand to some degree. I mean, this is considered the worst mass murder in American history. So of course there is going to be constant news coverage of it. But if you look at the past, it's kind of like what you were saying earlier too. I mean, just the media and just people in general, they focus so much on these shooters and their lives and like everything they believe in, that they essentially become rock stars in their own mind. To us, they're despicable, but to themselves and to others who actually kind of idolize them or who look up to them in a good way, that they're heroes to them. They are the heroes to them, and they can actually incentivize more people to do these despicable acts.
I mean, the United States has a history of massacres as well. So, you know, it's whether or not it's perpetuated by, you know, our government or a private corporation, but we focus nowadays, it's all about like one killer. We love like the idea of the lone gunman. Is just like, I don't know, for some reason America loves to focus on that idea. And, you know, whether or not that's what actually happened, I think a lot of people who normally would not question this sort of thing are actually questioning this time around, which is sort of fascinating. But I also don't want people to think that this sort of thing does not happen, because I don't want people to get some sort of false sense of security where they're saying, oh, well, you know, maybe these people didn't die, therefore we shouldn't believe any of this. I don't know, I think there's sort of a strange line. People, you know, you can question the official narrative, but definitely know that there are people out there that do kill and murder people here in the United States.
Oh, definitely. And I think it is important to actually show those people deference, because whether the cause of this shooting was some type of false flag or was it, you know, some type of just crazy gunman, the fact remains that over 50 people have died, and those people have families, they have fathers, mothers, sisters, you know, siblings, everything. And it is important. But the one thing now here is that Jimmy Kimmel kind of did like a whole rant monologue on this now, and he's trying to turn it political. And whether you agree or disagree with gun control, I just don't think it's really Jimmy Kimmel's job to preach his political fixes for an issue like this. I mean, me personally, I am against gun control. I mean, I've done videos about it. 98.4% of mass shootings happen in gun-free zones. I mean, the statistics are there, but I don't think someone like Jimmy Kimmel should go on a 20-minute monologue saying how it's wrong for people to have M16s when people already don't have M16s. You cannot have a fully automatic weapon already in this country. You have to be registered for it, and the registration process is not easy to acquire. So I just think he should stick to comedy and stop trying to preach his political ideology onto the masses.
You know, he's gotten more and more political lately. Like, he talked about his child and why he wants to get behind like healthcare, because his newborn was having health problems. And I don't know. I remember him from like the Man Show when I was a kid, and like it seems like really weird how he goes from like this guy who like started off his career just like chugging beer and making like sexist jokes, and like, you know, I used to watch the Man Show, and then now he's like, you know, became this like late night show comedian, and now he's like telling Americans how they should vote or how our country should be run. Like, it seems kind of like a strange trajectory. I don't know if like, I'm not exactly sure why he's given that platform, you could say, because there are plenty of other people who have thoughts and opinions and they're not given that platform. It just seems bizarre to me how Jimmy Kimmel's just kind of been lined up for this.
I'm not sure if this is true or not, but I watched a Steven Crowder video earlier, and he basically mentioned in the video that Chuck Schumer actually helped write Jimmy Kimmel's monologue regarding the healthcare when his child was sick. So I don't know if that's true or not. If it is true, I think that really kind of solidifies the notion that Jimmy Kimmel is not preaching about his own personal beliefs. He's preaching for a political ideology. If that is true, then he has used his sick son as a political tool to try to propagate more support for a specific ideology. And if that is indeed true, it's just kind of disgusting how you're willing to use your son or your child that was sick, but yet take your information and take your ideas from somebody who is the leading Democrat in the Senate.
Yeah, I mean it's a hard line to straddle because there are people, you know, like Jimmy Kimmel and others in the media who will jump on every single opportunity to politicize something and to push forward their own agenda or Chuck Schumer's agenda or whatever. But at the same time, there, you know, if regular people question what the mainstream narrative is of this whole shooting, that, you know, we're told we got to respect the dead and this and that, and I totally understand that. So it's a bizarre sort of situation that we've lined up where some people are jumping on the opportunity to politicize this and you know, just turn it into whatever they want it to be. And it's kind of like a microcosm of what's going on in America now. You know, there's a push more and more. We had something here in Maine. It was like a referendum and something on the ballot to make it harder for people to own guns. There was like another loophole that was on the ballot, and people in Maine voted it down. And it's interesting, like the people who worked to get it on the ballot, or all of a sudden, it seems like even like liberal people who traditionally don't like guns at all are starting to think about the Second Amendment more and start to wonder, you know, maybe we should be able to have that as a right still. So I think the issue is getting a little bit muddy here in the United States, and so I think these shooter things kind of bring up all these issues that we have.
So one of my subscribers commented on a video of mine, and I just want to kind of get your opinion on this. Hypothetically, if this was, I know this is kind of throwing it in left field here, but if this was a false flag, what do you think the reason would be? Or maybe people in the chat too can, I guess, answer that. Like, who would be responsible for instituting this false flag, and what would be the purpose of it? I asked him that as well. He hasn't responded back yet, but it is an interesting theory to think about.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, how far down the rabbit hole do people want to go? I mean, there have been people who have been talking about these sort of shootings and you know, mass murder killings have been going on. I think it was like, so like University of Texas back in the 60s or something. There was a mass shooting. A man, they called it like one of the first mass shootings. It was a sniper, and I think he killed like 16 people or something like that. And he had all kinds of ties to the military and these sort of programs. And just something that seems to happen at the same time is that there's often drills that go on at the same time or very close to when these active shooter events go on. So this came out on September 29th. This is from LasVegasNow.com. I'll put this article in the chat, but this is active shooter drill tests local agencies. So this was the 29th. So this was right before this shooting happened in Las Vegas. Las Vegas City Hall was closed for business on Friday, the 29th, as first responders teamed up for an active shooter drill. It seemed like a real crime scene. Police tape blocked off multiple streets. A command post was set up in front of the Las Vegas City Hall, and dozens of police officers and emergency responders from a number of agencies were present. And media was not allowed inside City Hall during the exercise because it played out like a real live scenario. Police were briefed on the situation. 2 active shooters entered City Hall and shot multiple victims. From there, first responders were set to react, and the training will be reviewed by each department to determine weaknesses. Several dignitaries also observed the drill, including U.S. Representative Dinah Titus, Las Vegas City Councilman Bob Coffin, and Las Vegas City Manager Betsy Fretwell. So it'd be kind of interesting to see if anyone could get some information about these reps and ask them, like, what do you think the odds are that, you know, you have a drill like 2 days before this shooting happens? I know, like, some people might think that's disrespectful to ask, but people have talked about for years how there's always these drills that seem to happen like right before a shooting happens or at the same time. And I don't know personally if if they just do drills like all the time in the United States, and so that's just statistically what happens. But it's also worth noting, someone sent me this article, and they said it's kind of hard to find on a Google search.
It kind of brings you back to Sandy Hook as well. I mean, there is video evidence of Sandy Hook that one of the dads, he was in 2 different videos of 2 different shootings. Now, whether that is due to Sandy Hook being, government false flag, or whether that's due to CNN using paid actors to try to garner more ratings during I guess, bad times. I mean, that's open for speculation here, but I saw an interesting video a couple years ago about that. Like, it's the same guy, the same dad, and he's in 2 different shooting videos. One Sandy Hook, and I forgot the other one, but so
yeah,
I guess
I try not to jump too much on that. I have my own personal opinions about that, but I know some people would try to roast me if I tried to bring up Sandy Hook at all. I mean, I think, I think people do die in these situations. To me, it's just whether or not the media is actually reporting on it truthfully, or if this sort of stuff is used, like you said, to garner ratings and to, because it's all money to them. It's all about a bottom line and how much they can sensationalize this sort of stuff. And they know that mass shootings get massive reviews. Obviously, people want to talk about this sort of stuff. It brings up a larger debate about gun control in the United States. So I know that you just did a video about the shooting. And were you talking about like gun rights and stuff when you were with that video?
No, the last video I did regarding this was just don't sensationalize it, because it'll only get worse if you do. My gun control video was like a year ago, but that was just based on gun control in general.
Yeah, I know. I kind of I skim Facebook to see like what some people are thinking or reporting on this, and people say, well, why can't we finally have a debate about, or talk about how violent America is, and how we need gun control. And Hillary Clinton jumped on the bandwagon talking about silencers. Do you want to mention that at all?
I just saw her. Yeah, she has to get her word in the press like always. But I'll be honest, I didn't really read into it that much here. I haven't really been looking into kind of newsworthy events lately, but I just know that she needs to stay out of politics in general. I mean, she's just trying so hard to stay relative, and it's just no one's buying it. I think even those who support her are starting to become annoyed with her. Just, woman, go away. No one wants you here.
Yeah, she went off about imagine if this guy used a silencer, like how many more people would have died because they wouldn't have heard the gunshots, and which was like kind of inaccurate, because you would still hear the gunshots. But
oh yeah, and with that too, I mean, okay, for a suppressor or a silencer, I mean, if you're shooting like a 22 or a handgun, yes, it's going to be quiet, but anything that has like supersonic round or subsonic round is going to make noise. I mean, you cannot silence a rifle like that. So even if there was a silencer attached to it, shooting that many people in a hotel on the 32nd floor, doing it in a surreptitious manner, isn't going to save more lives. The panic is still going to be procured from the event, and people are still going to find out there's a shooter relatively quickly. Maybe the first person might be saved, but in terms of using a suppressor or a silencer, I mean, it wouldn't have made much difference. That, and you cannot just go buy a silencer. You also have to register for that. So it's not like you can just go to your corner gun show and buy a silencer without doing a lot of information.
Yeah, thanks for that, because I feel like a lot of people that comment on like guns and stuff like that don't actually know any of the nuances of that at all. It just sounds like a good idea to them, and it's just like a talking point. Like with Jimmy Kimmel, like he'll go off about, he's got private security and, people that protect him. But, there are a lot of people who don't want other people to have that.
And we live in a free society. And when you have a free society, there is going to be crime. There is going to be evil in this world, and you cannot eradicate it. No matter how much you want to, there will be evil in this world. So in my mind, trying to take away constitutional protected rights and liberties of other citizens just in the vain hope of preventing similar attacks like these in the future is just unfounded. I mean, because as we know, 98.4% of mass shootings happen in gun-free zones. So taking away guns isn't going to make the country safer, because criminals, just like drugs, they're going to get their gun one way or another. I mean, the CDC estimates that 80% of gun homicides are gang-related, and 60% of gun deaths are actually from suicide. So the gun crime statistic in general isn't as bad as people think. And what is bad is the gang-related violence that are using these guns. And I doubt many gang members go buy their guns, at the gun store legally. They get them on the black market. They get them through the streets, through gang members and things like that nature. And trying to reduce and limit someone's constitutional protected liberties of the Second Amendment isn't going to solve anything.
I think you're totally right about that. I'm reminded often of there was a LA cop who became a journalist or reporter named Mike Rupert, and he tried to reveal for decades how he had worked, as a cop, and he talked about how cops and other government agencies would bring weapons and drugs into these, gun-free cities. That's how they would perpetuate the gang violence. So, America is the #1 producer of weapons and guns. I believe so. I think we still are. And, so it would seem very ironic to me that we would continue to constrict the ability for Americans to own weapons while simultaneously making weapons for everyone all around the world and constantly shipping them out. And, it seems like if the people who want to end gun violence, and of course I want to end gun violence. I have friends and family members who have been murdered by guns or have committed suicide. So the issue is very, very close to me. So, but I see the fact that there's this sort of we have a gun culture in America. So many people work for these large gun manufacturers, weapons manufacturers in general. So it just seems like we can't speak out of both sides of our mouth, saying that we need to restrict guns while also making more and more weapons every single year.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And it's kind of funny you brought up the family members. I actually had a family member too who committed suicide with a gun a few years back. And it's the problem I see, what I see in the media today, not media, just in common society today, is that most people are confused between the differential between a semi-automatic and an automatic weapon. Like, people think an AR-15 is an automatic weapon. It's not an automatic weapon. The automatic weapons in the U.S. are highly regulated. You cannot just go buy one. So all these people that say, let's ban automatic weapons, like the woman on The View with she's black with the dreadlocks. I've got her name.
Whoopi Goldberg.
Whoopi Goldberg. I saw a video with her a while back, and she's like, no one should have an automatic weapon. People do not need automatic weapons to hunt. And then Rand Paul was on the show with her. He's just like, well, yeah, but they cannot have automatic weapons. Those are forbidden. So you're right on that. And she kind of like, whoa, same thing. It's like, no, a semi-automatic weapon and an automatic weapon are two very different things. And they have to be distinguished properly if we want to have an accurate debate regarding assault weapons or weapons that can cause massive death.
I think she's actually a gun owner too. Like, I think she's admitted that she owns guns. I think so. I might be wrong, but I think she's like one of the few people on The View who has like a more, open view, whatever view of weapons or guns in general. Like, I can't really even watch that show.
No. So I watch it sometimes just to laugh, but I try to stay away from that, because that is controlled opposition at an overwhelming level. The bias there is very, very strong.
I would love like an anti-View TV show with like a bunch of like badass bitches on there, like people like arguing a little bit more. That'd be cool. Something with a little bit more edge, but the View is like a lot of mush, and yeah, it's a lot of these talking points that just seem to perpetuate. You know, it's just like a popular opinion right now, to try to want to use every single shooting opportunity or, you know, mass killing as a reason to try to cut back on weapons. And I know this sounds like conspiratorial, I'm going to go off on it, but we've seen more and more terrorists or people using vehicles as weapons to run people over. And I started to wonder, like, hey, could this be a way to roll out like the automatic or driverless cars? Like, that could be an argument. Like, you know, we can't trust people. People are too mentally unstable to drive cars. They're just going to keep killing people. So, you know, the safest way is to go about driverless cars. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I mean, it's possible. I wouldn't put anything past the evil of men. I mean, for instance, I can see the more, if terrorism like continues to expand, you know, more people become more afraid of terrorism. Wouldn't be surprised if all of a sudden the government, I mean, not saying anytime soon, but in the future starts mandating, you know, chips, like tracking chips in you and stuff like that. It's almost like, it's like Big Brother, 1984 by George Orwell. And we're already seeing this a lot today in the, just on the regressive end. I'm not saying regressive meaning just those on the left, but like those who basically are trying to control thought, like thought police, you know, for instance, trying to ban speakers like Ann Coulter, whether you like her or don't like her, from speaking at university because she's a hate group and things of that nature. They're already trying to control the narrative. And in a few years, I mean, if government gets involved, more people get angrier and angrier. I can see more detrimental and I guess things that are going to try to ruin our constitutional rights and liberties, for lack of a better phrase. Yeah, I kind of went off on a way deep in there. It didn't make sense, but just go with it.
Yeah, I'm trying to find.
I lost my train of thought.
There's an article that I found recently about private security, and so I want to bring up, like, Las Vegas has some of the strongest security in the entire world. Like, people compare it to Disneyland or Disney World. There's security cameras everywhere, like, are always being watched at all times. There's people, guards and security for obvious reasons. You know, it's a city of sin. I've gone to Vegas many times. You know, my family goes there all the time. So it could have been someone in my family that had been there that night. So, but it's like completely, like, you know, it's a city in the middle of a desert and it's completely under surveillance all the time. So the fact that this individual was able to bring all kinds of weapons into the hotel room, they claim he set up like cameras in the hallway and inside the room of the hotel room. Like, the whole thing just sounds kind of outlandish to me, because it's like you get if you start acting weird at all in Vegas, like, you are gonna have people on top of you. Like, there's no shenanigans in Las Vegas. So the fact that this guy was allowed to go on for days and days, and you know, there must have been some sort of indication that he was doing this. Like, they talked about dozens and dozens of weapons that he had and ammo all in this room. And these hotels have been caught with cameras inside hotel rooms. So, you know, you basically have no privacy in Las Vegas. So the fact that this individual is able to do that for so long, and the fact that he was shooting out of the room and no one knew, like, where he was for a while, you know, where all these gunshots were coming from. The whole thing sounds like pretty suspect to me, just being in Vegas, you know, maybe in some other city, but the fact that Vegas is under like complete surveillance the entire time just makes me wonder if this is about trying to roll out some sort of other additional security. So whether, you know, we know like facial scan technology is on the books. Well, I've done a video how there's cities in Canada which are doing like pre-crime sort of algorithm software, and people who own these hotel rooms, I don't know if it's Larry Silverstein or some other people who worked with like World Trade Center security, like owners of World Trade Center, like some really weird connections between like the hotels in Vegas. Like it's all the same people at the top who own these mega hotels. And I'm just wondering like if this can be a reason to try to bring out more and more of this tech that we know is already out there. It's just they need reasons to roll it out.
You know, a few things with that. I would have to, I guess, on some things disagree with you. I go to Vegas every year. I stay on Fremont. I don't stay on the Strip. But when I go to Fremont, usually the security is pretty lax. I actually went to the World Series of Poker one year, and I walked in. There was no security at all. I mean, people were bringing backpacks in, and I was thinking, I really shouldn't be saying this on a live stream, but if someone really wasn't crazy, they could just carry whatever they wanted to a room sitting with 1,000 people in there. Like, no, the hotel has cameras, but the hotel I stayed at or what I stay at, they never really bug you. But I mean, the airport itself, though, is really, they're really strict there. And like you said, regarding the cameras, like it kind of reminds me of the movie The Circle. It's actually, I read the book, I didn't see the movie, but yeah, I mean, they basically watching you everywhere. So I would agree with that regard that it is hard to, I mean, in some respect, I could see how he could actually be on notice, but eventually then when he actually starts instituting his massacre, it's, I don't know, I'm kind of hit or miss on it because I've been to Vegas. I go every year, and it's, for me, security's lax, but at the same time, there are cameras everywhere. So.
Yeah, you're right about like backpacks or luggage. Like he could have walked in with a bunch of stuff, and you know, I guess he was well known to people. He was like a high roller or whatever. So yeah, maybe he was just allowed to get away with more than other people. I don't know.
I just read a comment here by Roberto Vargas, and he said, oh, lucky Larry Silverstein. And that's actually really funny because Larry Silverstein, you know, he owned the World Trade Center, and the security company was Kroll Associates for it. Well, Larry Silverstein never really missed a day of work, never. And then during 9/11 in the morning, he all of a sudden had, I think, a doctor's appointment or a dentist appointment. So he leaves work for the one time, you know, and all of a sudden 9/11 happens. Now, I'm not saying that he was implicit in it, but I mean, there is strong evidence that either the U.S. government was involved or that Israeli Mossad knew about it, or it's just, in general, it's just, you know, the world we live in right now, there's just so much evil in this world that's actually hard to really determine if something has happened, what is portrayed to happen. Or like, for instance, was it, you know, Osama bin Laden, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia that did 9/11? Or was it Israel Mossad, or was the government involved? It's just, it's hard to actually distinguish what is right now because we can look in the world and there's so much evil from every single angle. It doesn't matter where you're from. You know, everyone, like our U.S. government has done some horrible things. Operation Dropkick, Operation Big Itch, Northwoods. I mean, so it's not really a big leap to assume that they would be responsible, or at the very least, they knew something big was happening and they just decided to utilize it for their own political means.
Yeah, great comments on that. I can't see the group chat. I don't know. Maybe any other comments in there?
No, they're talking about beer right now.
Beer.
Yeah. Gun sales will spike with all this gun. Yeah. Actually, someone wrote that gun sales will spike with all this gun ban talk. Actually, the bump stock is soaring, and if I was, if I knew about it ahead of time, I probably would have bought shares in that.
Oh, you capitalist, you.
Yeah, I actually have a family member who has a bump stock, and it's basically it kind of makes your gun automatic in essence. It helps you really, but there's also like a trigger where you can basically make it automatic by going, you shoot in, and when you release it shoots. It's like shoot, 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 shoot. So yeah.
Huh. Yep. Okay. Or
anyways,
bought like gun stock or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, every single time that people, it's weird. It's like this, it's this duality. Every single time there's like this talk about cracking down on guns or making it harder for Americans to buy guns, people buy more guns, people buy more ammo. Like, you would think they would know by now that's just even saying something like that's gonna build up the stock, and people are gonna continue to buy even more weapons than before. It's weird. It's like either a self-fulfilling prophecy or there are people who actually want this to happen.
Oh yeah. So what else do we have for news?
I don't know. Did we beat that topic? I think we went into that quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm good. We can keep going, whatever. I'm visiting CNN.com right now. I know CNN, but I want to see what they're saying. There's really nothing. It's all about the shooting here.
Really? That's it. Yeah, let's see what the normies are up to.
I'm bringing the comments too. See if anyone has any suggestions in the comment box. So you can't see the chat on yours?
No, I've only seen the stuff that I've got group chat. Sorry guys, this is my first live show here, so I'm still learning everything.
I just sent you a link on Twitter here. Maybe try clicking that and see if it helps. It should take you to the chat room, but then just mute it, or else you're going to hear two different voices.
Oh, for me to read the chat, do I have to be on my YouTube page?
Yeah, that's what I'm doing, and that's what I've been doing. So.
All right, that makes sense. Let's take a look at what do we got. We got like 28 people. Okay, let's see.
Talk about Puerto Rico. We got fucked up.
Oh,
I didn't really look into it, so.
Yeah, Jason, I'm a noob. All right, I found it. This is my first ever live show. I know I've been talking about this for like 6 months now, so it's kind of funny. Yeah, Puerto Rico. Oh, I just did a video on this, but I haven't published it yet. Trump said that Puerto Rico's debts should be absolved. He was like, oh, I don't know if it's Goldman Sachs or whoever owns Puerto Rico's debt, but you guys should cancel that. And I was like, oh my God. Like, I can't believe a president, like a US president, would ever say that. Like, he might have some enemies right now. Like, instead of the mainstream news reporting on that, they're like joking about him like tossing paper towel, like that's the big story that's come out of that.
It's interesting now that the mainstream media is actually talking about something else besides Trump and Russia or what Trump tweeted, but after this is over, they're going to go right back to their denigration of Trump.
Yeah, I think I don't know if like Puerto Rico, there seems like something very bizarre is kind of going on. There's like this fight between like the government of Puerto Rico and the president right now, and it's politics as usual, but it's like they've got these T-shirts that says like we're dying or people are dying or something, and they say that they're not getting any sort of supplies, but yet people are claiming that supplies are being sent over. It's just that they're not being distributed, and that this has turned into some sort of like political like wrestle. So, supplies like water, people need access to clean water right now, but the water is not getting out to the people that need it, just like we've seen in plenty of other natural disaster situations.
Like with the Red Cross scam and stuff?
Katrina, yeah.
Do you know if the Puerto Rico, what currency they use? Do they use a U.S. dollar, or do they have their own separate currency? I don't know much about Puerto Rico, I'll be honest.
I believe that they do use U.S. dollars.
So if that's the case, then that means they're probably controlled by a central bank. And if that's the case, then they can just use the U.S. Mint and print fiat currency, which will hurt us taxpayers. But that's the thing with fiat currency. You can basically just, if you're in trouble, you can basically just print money, which, I mean, it devalues the dollar. It basically taxes us. But if they're low on money and they use the U.S. dollar, I don't see how the Federal Reserve wouldn't step in and help them. So I have to definitely look that up. I'm kind of curious on that.
Yeah, I did. I've done videos like for months now about Puerto Rico and how they start just go through like the preliminary legal process of bankruptcy, and it's kind of been stalled, but now things are like even worse. And Trump says, because the Puerto Rico's economy has basically stopped because of the natural disaster, he says that the banks might have to just swallow this debt. But I would imagine if we let that happen to one colony or one state of the United States, then like Chicago and this whole state of Illinois and plenty of others would start to be like, hey, what about us?
Yeah. What's interesting too is once Puerto Rico starts getting rebuilt and stuff, you're going to see a lot of job growth and stuff. But most people actually, what they don't realize is that, yes, after Puerto Rico begins its new construction, it's going to look like their economy is booming and they're going to be having lots of jobs. But in essence, they're not really gaining anything because they're just coming back to that homeostasis where they were before the shit hit the fan, if you will. So I think that's going to happen also with Texas too. I mean, we're going to see a lot of good economic growth in Texas, and it's going to look great, and it's going to look great for Trump too. But the fact is that nothing is really being gained here. We're only going back to what we were before everything went wrong.
I think all this whole debt thing has just been continued to be swept under the rug, and places like Puerto Rico, they're the canary in the coal mine. They're the ones who are going to have to. They're going to fall first, and then, they're going to try to institute austerity on them. And, the writing's on the wall. I mean, I don't really foresee, I guess the article that I just shared with on the chat shows all the companies that own all of Puerto Rico's debt, and no one was responsive. No one gave any sort of comment to the news about what they thought about Trump's issuing that they should just have their debt absolved. And frankly, like Trump, some of his businesses, they went out of business, and he was able to declare bankruptcy on some of his ventures in the past. So, that sort of bankruptcy or jubilee debt absolution is available for some people, but not for the masses of people.
It kind of reminds you of Fight Club at the very end. You do that, just erase the debt. Let's resort to domestic terrorism and erase all the debt.
Yeah, I actually watched that film like a few months ago, and I was like, there's no way on earth that film could be made nowadays. Like since the War on Terror, like it came out like right before that, like I think it came out in 99 or 98. Like if that had been made in like 2001 or 2002, if they tried to get that movie made a couple years later, they'd be like, no way, you can't even joke about blowing up creditors or anything like that.
Well, like, Hollywood has devolved to such a sad degree. I mean, you can't even like listen to them anymore. Like they always have just they got to give their political opinion out, and they just don't do their job anymore. They just don't act, and everything like seems like everyone in this today's world just has their panties in a bunch. That they can't get in. If they hear something insensitive, they got to go in their safe space because it offends them, instead of actually trying to listen to what somebody's saying and debate them on an intellectual level. They rather just remain ignorant and hide from it. I mean, the only way to actually close the gap between this political polarization between left and right is to be able to sit down and discuss things with those whom you disagree with. Until you do that, nothing is going to change. On the contrary, it's actually going to get worse because you are essentially isolating yourself off from those who disagree with you, and that's only going to further the gap between one another. We actually have to sit down. Hey, I disagree with you, but you know what? Let me hear what you have to say. Let me give you my opinion, and then let's try to talk about it.
Yeah, I think I did a video recently about like how no one learns like ethics or Socratic method, or like no one has like debate team anymore. Like it's all totally degraded into just people arguing. And at my alma mater, USM, University of Southern Maine, they have combined the history and political science departments together in kind of like not hired positions when people retire. and they got rid of the German degree and something else, but now we have like a social justice minor, and like they're getting all kinds of money to build that up. So I'm like, all right, hopefully there's still like they'll learn ethics or Socratic method or how to debate, because otherwise it's just like people are just like being pushed into bubbles. And I think with programs such as Facebook and stuff, it seems like more and more insular, where like they're purposely pushing people together and it becomes like an echo chamber.
Oh yeah, I think everyone should take like just like a one civics course. I mean, learn about, you know, ethos, pathos, and logos. Learn how to actually have an argument with someone, discuss it. Not like there's so much like gender studies degree these days, and it's sad. Like you actually just look at what is happening in the world today, and it just seems that our race relations and just race relations in general are just degenerating to such a degree that it's almost unsettling. It's like the question becomes, can we actually rebound from this? I mean, are we at rock bottom now? Are we going to keep on getting worse and eventually finally hit rock bottom, and we can finally, you know, ascend back up and bring ourselves back to normal homeostasis?
I hope so. I mean, I think it's kind of interesting. Like, there's been a lot of talk about how conservatism is like the new counterculture, and like not our generation, like millennials, but like the generation after, like they're seeing how insane like millennials have become, so they're starting to be like, we want to be different from that, and hopefully it'll mean that they're more open-minded. I hope so. I mean, I'm an optimistic person at the end of the day.
I actually heard about that. I think they're Generation Z, I think, and they're supposed to be really conservative. But I think the question becomes with that then, how conservative is conservative? I mean, do we really want, like me, I'm, you know, libertarian, probably conservative. I'm fiscally conservative, socially moderate. So with me, seeing like a rise of a conservative generation, that does kind of sound good to me. But how conservative are they? Are they going to be like, you know, almost like Charlottesville, like way, way, way conservative, where it's only going to make things worse? Like, I think the main issue, what we see in just politics today, and this includes congressmen and the president, is that we live in a pendulum. So, for instance, Obama took it really far left. Now, is Trump going to take it really far right? And the same thing with people. You know, the millennials, or a lot of them, are either progressive or regressive. They're taking it really far left. So the next generation, then, are they going to take it really far right, or can we actually get to that middle ground again?
There's something really weird. You might have heard about it, but I recently tried to speak at a rally to denounce political violence up here in Little Augusta, Maine, our state capital. And I pretty much, like, I knew some of the organizers, and I tried to like vet every single person that was on the speaking list. And, you know, I was one of the only like leftist people, whatever you want to call it. You know, there was also medical marijuana advocates, and there was like an interesting mix of people, mostly libertarians, to be honest. But there's like this concerted effort by like the Democrats in Maine, and we now have a socialist party here in Maine that was just founded by a bunch of Greens that defected from the party. And they basically like went out of their way to label every single libertarian like a white supremacist or a Nazi even. And that sort of stuff like really upsets me, because the more that you label people like Nazis, the more it like lessens the actual, you know, meaning of it. And also, like, I've worked with libertarians for years now. Like, we worked to legalize marijuana starting in Portland, Maine, and then statewide. So I just, you know, I have a history with people. So it was kind of upsetting to see like everyone jump on this, like, you know, people are holding up signs like punch Nazis and stuff like that. And just seemed really weird where like fellow leftists were openly like calling other people like names. Basically, I started to ask people, I'm like, okay, do you have any evidence that any of these people are white supremacists. And basically the response I got was that, you know, people were sharing Pepe the Frog memes. And for me, like, that's just not enough of a reason to call someone a Nazi at this point.
No, it shouldn't be. I mean, Chris Reagan did a brilliant parody video. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's called Punch a Nazi. It's like a parody of the song Paparazzi by Lady Gaga. For all those in the chat, too, I recommend just searching that. Chris Reagan, Punch a Nazi. And it's great. I mean, it's great because nowadays it seems like someone who is a Nazi is someone who disagrees with you on a political basis. I mean, it has nothing to do with their actual authoritarian proclivities or anything of that nature. Is if someone disagrees with you, they are a Nazi. And we have groups like Antifa who are supposedly anti-fascist, yet they are synonymous with fascist tactics, you know, preventing people's constitutional rights and liberties from speaking, causing violence, you know, riots. We have groups like that are only spreading the word of a Nazi even more and more. I mean, I think I was even called a Nazi a couple of times. I was called a socialist and a communist even, which was kind of weird for me. I don't know. I'm fiscally conservative, and I lost a sub a couple months back because I'm a communist because I was talking about the I can't remember. Never mind. But yeah, he called me a communist. Like, okay, I guess.
Yeah, I feel like this is why we need history more and more. And in the U.S., like public education, we've been so focused on, we're calling it STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and math. And it's important that we focus on those topics because, frankly, we're really bad at math in the United States. And we can, you know, there's many reasons for that. But the fact that we've been neglecting history for a whole generation now, like even when I was a kid, it was like my history class would be like ancient Egypt, and then it would be like American Revolution for like a day, and then we talk about Civil War for a day, and then we would jump to World War II for like a while, and then maybe a day of like Vietnam or something. And so it's just, the topics never made any sort of sense. Like people have been ignoring certain issues. And so people want to talk about calling someone a communist or a socialist or a Nazi. Like people don't even know what those terms mean anymore. And so it loses its value, or it loses, the more that you call someone that, it also lessens that sort of atrocities that happened.
Yeah, and a lot of it too, I mean, it derives from the media, of course, but a lot of it also derives from the indoctrination of students in colleges. It seems like most professors in colleges these years, they just don't want to teach the facts. They want to add their political spin to it. And in essence, in doing so, they are basically not brainwashing is kind of a too strong word, but they are indoctrinating people that may not understand politics that much. They are essentially giving them a personality and an ideology to follow. It's how I voted for Obama in 2008. I mean, I live in a conservative state. So growing up, you know, when Bush was in office, I watched a lot of the mainstream media, CNN, MSNBC, NBC, ABC, you know, all this stuff. And they made George W. Bush as like the Antichrist. Yes, he was a bad president, but in my mind, they made him seem like he was a Nazi, that he was synonymous with Hitler, that he was going to destroy the country. So then when John McCain ran for president, which I hate John McCain now, but anyways, when John McCain ran for president, they gave this notion that John McCain was like the next George Bush. They were synonymous 100% with each other. So then I went to Obama because Obama was the complete opposite of everything that I thought was wrong. And the reason I thought that was wrong, or George Bush and John McCain were wrong, was due to the constant news and the constant narration of the liberal media, or the corporate media, I should say. They're not really liberal, but that's not our topic. But the corporate media. So I think the same thing can be construed when we're talking about professors. Like, I was young, I didn't understand politics. A lot of students going to college, they don't really know about politics. So when a professor tells them something that is their personal opinion, but he or she says it as fact, well, those students then have a stronger tendency to believe their professor's ideology rather than think for themselves and do their own independent research.
just in my own personal experience, I volunteered for the Democratic Party. Like my college had, we had college Democrats. We didn't have college Republicans, or we didn't have college Greens or college Libertarians. So it was kind of already just like rolled out for us. Like, if you like politics, you get involved with this organization, and that's it. And I've always considered myself like, socially liberal, whatever that means. I don't even know what any of this means. Like Jason put up there, like, he's like, labels right and left doesn't mean anything anymore. And I agree with that 100%, because I just feel like the more that you can pigeonhole people, the more that we can fight over this sort of stuff. But the Democrats have done a very good job, like, engaging the youth, and they've targeted the youth, especially in my state. So, I was made to believe that was the only choice. And if you can get people when they're young, mostly people will stick to that party the whole rest of their lives. So they've done a good job just kind of rounding up people. Although the Democrats are hemorrhaging money right now in Maine, they can't. They're not taking in donations anymore the way that they used to, because people wanted to vote for Bernie. Here locally, we had 700 people show up to Hillary Clinton. Meanwhile, over 10,000 people waited in line to see Bernie Sanders. And yet, Hillary Clinton won the election. So people could see the writing on the wall. And I think hopefully they've shut people off for a generation, because if you saw how things were rigged through the election in the eyes of a Democrat, like, how could you stick with that party?
Yeah, I like how Hillary, won. And I'm not a huge Bernie supporter. I don't mind him. I'm not really a fan of him, but I don't hate the guy. But he should have been the nominee for the Democratic Party. It should not have been Hillary. If we lived in a truly just society, it would have been Bernie Sanders against Donald Trump for the 2016 election. But they thought Hillary would win, and then Hillary got a break from Comey, because no way Comey was going to recommend indictment for the first female president. And at the time, everyone thought, save, I think you didn't think that, I didn't think that. There have been YouTubers that said Trump would beat Hillary, but for the most part, everyone thought Hillary would be the first female president. So James Comey, there's no way that he could recommend an indictment against her, because in essence, he would be basically destroying the career of the first female president. And even if he did recommend an indictment, I can't see someone like Loretta Lynch actually following through and indicting her. There's no way. Hillary Clinton, no matter what she did, she could probably killed someone, and they still would have nominated her instead of Bernie for the Democratic nominee.
Dennis S. posted, he said, far more people move from Democrat to Republican than Republican to Democrat. I think, I'm trying to remember, there's that quote where they're like, if you're young and liberal, if you're not young and liberal, you don't have a heart, but if you're not conservative and older, you don't have a mind. Something like that. I don't remember who said that. Was it Churchill? I don't remember. I just thought that was funny.
So I'm just reading the comments here a little bit. Very good. There's a lot more people here than mine. Like our show, Holly and I did the show last week, and I had 7 people watching. Yeah.
It was a really good show too.
It was good. It was good.
It was definitely more organized than this one. That's for sure.
No, this is good. I'm glad that you lost your live show virginity.
It's true now. It's on now. So now I'm an addict. We'll see how this goes. Well, I had to get a whole new internet line. So, for like the longest time, I was like hassling people for donations to upgrade my internet. And I thought I could just, be simple. Well, it took like a month and a half for Fairpoint Communications to come over. Then they looked at my connection and they were like, oh my God, I can't even believe you have any connection at all, because they took a look at my phone wire, and it was installed in the 1920s. Like, it was literally just copper with like some cotton wrapped around it. And he's like, I don't even know how you're getting an internet connection right now. So they had to drill a hole in my wall and like insert like a brand new cable and like tack it onto the side of the house. And I didn't tell my landlord. Hopefully he's cool with that. But now my internet's pretty good.
In my condo, my home city, I have very, very good internet. Here in my apartment, though, not so much. So, what can you do?
Yeah, so I'm just like, I'm really happy. Like, my viewers helped me with this. So now it's on, because my original computer and my original internet that I started my channel with, there was no way I could do live chat. Like, I would click on it and it's like, what are you doing? So I needed a whole new upgrade. So I'm really excited. So thanks, Piper, for doing this, being on, giving me, Piper made like a really awesome like how-to video. He like showed me how to start up a live chat, because I'm like, I can't do this. Like, I was so scared. So he did a great, you should post that online actually, or do something similar to that. You could have like tech videos.
Yeah. Then you are still sending me money for that, correct? Like $20?
Oh yeah, totally.
Okay,
Yeah,
just
I'm
making
gonna
sure.
super chat that next time.
Someone wrote, I forgot who it was, out with a two-party system, Christian Holt. And I think we discussed that a little bit earlier, but I completely agree with that. Nowadays, we are defined, I mean just people in general that are in politics, are defined about the, about the donkey or the elephant. Like, you're defined about what party you're running for. And that ain't true at all. Like, me, if I had to pick a party, it would probably be Libertarian Party, but I don't even like even saying I'm a libertarian. I believe in the rights and liberties for everyone. I'm fiscally conservative, but I think that labels, although they are good to kind of get a basic premise of someone's beliefs, I think labels actually do more harm than good. I wish we could actually just completely get rid of the two-party system, and then people run based on their own ideas and their own merits, not on what the party represents.
Yeah, I have a great commenter. I think he's called like Die Nada Die or something. I don't know what his title is, but he's always like, get rid of political parties. Like, every time I do a political video, he's like, the only thing he says is like, get rid of political parties. And like, honestly, I can't argue with him on that, because it's so nuanced. So like, Barbara just asked me, she said, am I sick of the Greens? I've been disliked by a lot of Greens for a long time, pretty much ever since I ran. Like, the first article, like when I ran for school board, was like, stripping burlesque school board member, runs for office or whatever. And there were Greens who were like, get her out of here. Like, we don't want that. And some people were like, whatever, we're Greens. But then, people made sure that I could never chair the Portland Green Party. Like, there was like this whole overhaul, like a mutiny. And so I feel like the party system is definitely rough. And I think a lot of psychopaths get involved with politics or love politics. So, that's just kind of how it goes too. I agree with a lot of libertarians on most of their issues. I think I'm definitely wary about them taking corporate money, I think, for elections. But then again, like, they actually get on the ballot, and the Greens like don't really get on the ballot. So, there's definitely issues with that as well. And I think the point with the whole rally, with like the reason why progressive groups went after me and like threatened me and told me I couldn't speak at this event, that it would be the end of my professional career, my political career, like threatening me in general. Thanks, M99. Woo! Okay. The reason why they went after me is because the progressives, Democrats and Republicans, are scared to death of like a third party alliance. So if Greens and Libertarians and majority of people hate political parties in general. So if independents, if we all got together, that would be death to the two major parties. And they've basically had a stranglehold on the United States for 150 years. Like the RNC and DNC have been around running the show for over 100 years. So, their worst nightmare is for people to come together. And Caitlin Johnstone wrote a great article saying how we need a massive anti-war coalition. So everyone that's been saying that Iraq and Afghanistan was wrong all along, people who are Ron Paul followers, people who are anti-war activists, people who are Greens, independents, whoever, veterans, their worst nightmares for the anti-war people and everyone who thinks Iraq and Afghanistan was wrong to come together. You know, I think that's why I was personally threatened and why libertarians were threatened and why Caitlin Johnstone was threatened, because, you know, that's the death to the two major parties in the US.
It's sad too, because this year could have actually been the year that we omit the two-party system. I mean, Bernie and Trump could have ran as independents, and they both could have probably made it up in the forefront yet. I mean, Trump, he really isn't a conservative. He's been a Democrat his whole life. I would put him more as moderate, but I think he's more moderate in the sense that he listens to his aides or those in Congress. Like, he'll listen to like Paul Ryan based on what fiscal policy he should implement. But I mean, he was a Democrat his whole life. Bernie Sanders, he ran as a Democrat, but he is a self-proclaimed Democratic socialist, and he's an independent actually in the Senate. So really, this year could have been the year that two independents ran separately yet made it to the forefront. And if they actually would have done that, I think in the 2020, we may have seen a lot more of it, which kind of reminds me, Ross Perot back in 92, I mean, the man was brilliant too. And he was actually leading the polls against Clinton and George W. Or George H. And then all of a sudden he backed out, and people say he backed out because he got death threats. And many people say it was George H. Bush that gave him the death threats. But either way, him backing out in 1992, I mean, he kind of also ruined the momentum of an independent party because he was doing very well with it. But anyways, back to what we're talking about here. Just it's interesting that if Trump and Bernie would have ran separately at independent parties, we could have seen a good good omittance of the two-party system and a more incentivization. Is that a word? Incentivization. More incentive for independent parties in the future.
Woohoo, Smokey! Yeah, Smokey. Smokey, you rock. All right, that's cool. Thanks for the little bump there. Woo, super chat. Okay, back to you, Piper.
I'm good. You're up.
Yeah, so I had that debate with people about like Bernie Sanders, because, you know, I had friends who left the Green Party to support Bernie and try to vote in the primaries. And like, I had actually considered that at one point. There was like a week where, before the cutoff, like they had a cutoff in Maine about when you could register as a Democrat. And it was like months and months before you could vote in the primaries. And I was like, oh, should I do it? Should I try to vote for Bernie in the primaries? And like my gut told me, like, there's no way that they're going to let him be the Democratic, Democratic candidate for president. I felt like he was speaking against so much of what the Democrats represent as far as like corporate money, that sort of stuff at that point. So I feel like he was meant to kind of bring people in, and it broke my heart to see so many people who normally don't care about politics at all whatsoever, be bamboozled, if you will, and no disrespect to anyone. Like, I had plenty of friends who were giving $27 a month and all that sort of stuff. And I was really excited about the whole thing because it did seem to activate people who had never cared before. It was a massive movement here in Maine. And so, people argue in the Green Party whether or not, Jill Stein was like, well, we can put Bernie on the Green Party ballot. And like, he totally should have ran independent. And I told people straight up, like, it would be better for him to run as an independent because then he would actually be on the presidential ballot. Like, he would be an option. Like, if he just ran as an independent from day one, he would have been on the presidential ballot. But instead, if you go through the primary process, it's a huge risk. And like we learned with the DNC fraud lawsuit, that they can make up their mind in, quote, a smoke-filled back room who's going to be the primary winner. It doesn't matter how the voting goes, how many coins are flipped, or, how each state determines it. It's a private organization, and they can choose who the primary winner is. So, for me, it's more important to get on the ballot than to actually represent a party. And, you know, one of my heroes is Jesse Ventura. You know, like you brought up Ross Perot. Ventura just, you know, they had to cut back on who could be on televised debates because Jesse Ventura, as an independent, just totally, he was not expected to win, but he smoked the opposition in televised debates. And, you know, he's a super smart and charismatic dude, you know, pro wrestler, actor, all that sort of stuff. So in a lot of ways, he's like Trump. He's like apolitical in that sense. And people found that very refreshing. And so I think that's why he won.
I think that'll also continue on in the future because people are upset with the Republicans and Democrats in Congress. I actually think, even though, like, you know, the Republicans own the House and the Senate and the presidency, if you want to say Trump's a Republican, there is still a lot of anger towards them because they are not doing what they've been promising for years. A good example is like the Obamacare repeal. When Obama was president, I believe, don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure it was around 40 times they sent a repeal bill to his desk, and he vetoed it. 40 times they sent him it. Well, when Trump gets office, then they completely ignore what they try to do for the last 8 years. I mean, they're all political, just like Democrats are. And I think people are opening up to that. And back to my original point here now is that if the Republicans continue this charade where they say one thing and do another, and it's becoming more and more pronounced in the media, I mean, even Fox News is calling them out on it. Buck Sexton, he's a radio host I listen to, he talks about it a lot. They're actually going to be in danger in the midterms. I mean, right now in the midterms, the Democrats are the underdogs just in the Senate because they have like 24 Senate seats up for re-election. Republicans only have like 9 or 10. But in 2022, when it's 2022 and Republicans turn, well, I mean, they better watch out. But the House could definitely change in the midterms if Republicans don't actually start getting things done, things that they promise to get done.
I was talking with my dad the other night. Like, he's a big like Trump supporter. Like, he's like classic Republican kind of dude. But I think it's interesting. I think moving forward, like Trump has really changed the office of president, you know, whether or not you like him or not. And someone mentioned that, you know, Trump did question 9/11, and before that, he was a major Democratic Party donor. And, you know, he probably switched to Republican because he saw that as like the best mode for him to win the presidency. So he's a businessman first and foremost. You know, he's not the typical politician type. But I think he totally changed the office of presidency because could you imagine like the next president like not tweeting all the time? Like people would be upset.
It's I was reading some comments here about Jesse Ventura. I liked his show Conspiracy Theory. You ever watch that show?
Yeah, that was awesome.
That was a good show. He always had Oliver Stone's, I think, son with him too, and that was a good show.
Yeah, he's got a new show on RT now because now he's, you know, people are going to say he's a crazy Russian now, but his new show on RT, his son is on that show too, I think. So he's got a lot to say, that's for sure.
Well, people look at RT like it's just, you know, Russian propaganda, and I'm sure it is to some degree, but it's no worse than like CNN and, you know, Fox News and things of that nature. I think you can maybe even get more honest news from an organization like RT as opposed to what we have here in our corporate media. I even think that I forgot his name. He used to work for CNN. He's old, good glasses. God, I can't remember his name, but he even works for there now too.
Lionel?
No, he's like old. He used to be really famous on. I gotta look that up. It's bugging me. He was on a couple of the roasts. I think he was on like the roast of Pam Anderson or Donald Trump. Oh, it's making me mad.
Oh man, I've got like it's hard. We're like running out of stuff to talk about, but we have like more people watching now. That kind of
yeah,
kind of weird.
You guys came at a bad time. We'll
You guys
probably,
are all joining now. We've been talking for like an hour and a half, you guys.
probably wrap it up here.
Oh, is he saying Larry King? Is it Larry King?
Yeah, Larry King. Larry King.
Okay, thanks, Barbara. Oh, Larry King's on RT now?
Yeah. He was last year. I know that. It was funny because I think CNN was actually attacking RT News, and this is like, well, yeah, but you're one of your main guys who worked for you for years is now on RT. You know, like, so you're saying that all of a sudden Larry King changed? He deviated away from his standard news reporting, his integrity. Yeah.
So you said you watch some sort of, or you listen to some sort of radio program. Can you list that?
Buck Sexton.
Is that local?
No, Buck Sexton with American Now. It's a national one. He's good. He's good. I mean, he is right leaning, but he isn't like what you know, like for instance, Rush Limbaugh. Like Rush Limbaugh, a lot of it, he'll kind of just acquiesce to Trump or to, you know, the Republican, not really Republicans, I guess. But see, me personally, even though I voted for Trump, I'm not afraid to oppose him. When he does something wrong, I will attack him for it. Likewise, Bernie, I mean, everyone. And that's how you should be. And that's how Buck Sexton is. Buck Sexton, he has a great personality too. It's someone you could like sit down and have a beer with and you'd just be a cool guy to talk to. But yeah, I recommend him. Buck Sexton with America Now. It's on iPhone podcast. So yeah.
Yeah, there's so many good, I mean, there's so many amazing pundits nowadays, you know, like since we have like this ability to live stream and podcast now, I don't know, I think it makes me hopeful. Like we have like the big 6 media corporations, but I think more and more people are realizing that it's just, it doesn't cut it. People want something more. People want something more nuanced. And yes, a lot of us are just regurgitating other news that we read and stuff. Like we're not true journalists. Like I don't call myself a journalist. Like I have my own personal experiences, but it's more about like commenting on the news and my reaction to the news. And like people talk about Lionel Nation and like other people who have been putting out their ideas for several years now. And so I think this whole idea of like commentary or content creation is this whole new idea. And frankly, it's pretty cool. Like I'm excited. I think, you know, we're using the internet as a tool. And I think not since like the printing press days, and like this is how the American Revolution was started. It was a bunch of patriots and people who wanted to question the British government. They had the printing press. People who had access to the press were putting out their own zines and their own papers and questioning what was going on. And this is this, you know, same thing that's kind of going on now. Like not to compare myself with the American patriots and the founding fathers at all, but they'd be doing the same thing. Like Ben Franklin would have like a really badass channel right now if he were living today.
Oh yeah. You know, it's kind of interesting that most people don't realize too that like my show and your show, we actually still do need the corporate media. I mean, because unless we actually go out there ourselves with microphones and do our own interviews, we're basically, you know, doing analysis on the lies and the narration we see in the mainstream media. Now, I really don't like doing corporate media stuff. I know you don't either. I think we both pride our channels on discussing topics that the corporate media doesn't, but we do still need some type of media out there so we can actually help with our analysis and go from there. I think it's fair just to actually say that, because a lot of people think, yeah, get rid of the media altogether. Well, you do need some media, whether you're lying or not. You do need some media yet. They are important for our society.
Thank you, Any Ghost. I got a little nudge from Any Ghost. That was awesome. And yeah, it's kind of a, yes, Federalist Papers, right? Roberto he mentioned Federalist Papers. I remember when I first got onto school board, there was a man who was like, I need to meet with you in person. And so I like went and got coffee with him, and he's like, you got to make sure every single kid is taught the Federalist Papers in high school, and we need to make it part of the curriculum. and this and that. I'm like, yeah, dude, I agree with you like 110%. That's more like something that gets tackled in college because kids like reading levels are so low nowadays. But not even that. Like you could start off with like a few snippets of the Federalist Papers, but no one else on the school board was interested in that. So he was kind of disappointed in me, but you know, I need a super majority to get the Federalist Papers on the high school curriculum.
That'll be good. I'm going to advertise myself a little bit here. Jason Tomlinson asks, I want to have a link to Piper's channel. I tried sending a link, but I'm not a moderator. So everyone just, or if you don't want to, or if you want to just come and spam me, you can as well. Just search Piper Report.
Yeah, all you guys, I'm sure a lot of these people probably already.
Yeah, Piper Report on YouTube and just click the eagle. It's a nice eagle, friendly eagle.
Report. I'm pro bird, as we know. But yeah, Garden Gnome's always asking me about my doves. All the birds are asleep right now. I had to cover Amit because she was going crazy, and I didn't want them interrupting our channel. So they're doing good. It's, you know, they go to bed once the sun's down. Thank you, Patrick from Canada. Woo!
Yeah, it's probably a good thing I don't have those cats yet I had last week, because they saw your birds, they might get trigger happy and go after them, or want to.
How are they? Are they at your mom's?
Yeah, I haven't seen them. I'm going to be going to my home city tomorrow, and I'm going to be visiting the kitties and see how they're doing. Got to fatten them up. They were so tiny.
Oh. Can you have them at your place?
I can, but now I got my new job. I'm working a lot. I feel bad leaving them alone, but I guess they are cats too, so all they do is just sleep 24/7.
I love cats. I'm a cat person too. They make me sneeze, so that's how it goes. But I think we should wrap this up, guys. I love you guys so much, but it's 9:30. We've been going at this for a while, but thanks everyone that's been oh, we just got a new viewer here. I just gotta say hi to Bram. Hello, Bram. We got to do this again soon, Piper.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think this is our fourth or fifth one, and I think people like it. So once I get things figured out on my end, I'd be game to do this like a weekly thing or a bi-weekly thing if you want.
That would be really cool because, yeah, I think, you know, me as a green and you as a libertarian, we both have agree on like the whole independent politics, and I think our channels, you know, even though we have differing opinions on a lot of stuff, like we have a lot of the same sort of like viewer clientele, independent thought. You know, we're just a couple of people with like simple sets here. You know, we're not full out with a news set yet or anything like that. But you know, we're growing, and we've got a really cool viewership. It seems like, you know, I love my subscribers. You know, they're like super good friends right now, and they've actually, you guys have helped me out through a lot. You know, there are days where I'm like, what is going on? You know, I've feared, you know, should I speak my mind about something? And you guys are always there for me. So
oh yeah, I mean, I'm only at like 1,350, but it's nice when people, you know, appreciate your work. It's nice when you make a video, you get responses to it, and even when you get like a thumbs down, you still have people watching it. But yeah, it's nice. It's subscribers. I mean, if I have some subscribers on this chat as well, I want to say thank you, because like Holly was saying, it's good. It's nice. It's nice.
Jason says, gives George Soros the finger by giving this channel a like. And I would also add, you can give George Soros a thumbs up by liking the Piper Report. So go check out his channel if you haven't already. Okay? All right, guys. I'm gonna close out of this if I can figure out how to close out of this real quick here.
Just
okay,
top right, stop.
All right. Good night, everyone. Bye.
See you later.
Bye, Piper.
Bye.